Welcome, welcome to the Hard Skills Show, where we discuss how to develop the most challenging soft skills required to navigate today's leadership complexities and tomorrow's unknowns. I'm your host, Dr. Mira Brancu, and my new Millennials Workbook for Navigating Workplace Politics, if you haven't heard, it came out last month. It was a #1 new release in business and organizational learning on Amazon. So don't forget to get your copy. Season 6 to 9 are all dedicated to this topic, and season 6 is all about positive politics. And today we have Dr. Linda Lawrence talk about sponsorships, which I think is a critical positive politics mechanism, right? We're going to talk about what is sponsorship, how's it different from mentorship, can you actually ask for it, what makes somebody actually want to serve as a sponsor. I've been in that role. It's been incredibly rewarding. How does somebody end up in that kind of role? How can you be a sponsor? All of that, sponsor is what we're talking about today. And I'm going to introduce to you our speaker today, Dr. Linda Lawrence. Our guest is the founder of People Always Healthcare Consulting. With over 25 years of experience as a physician executive, Linda has held senior leadership roles across the military, academia, nonprofit boards, and startup companies. She is recognized for her expertise in guiding leaders to foster trust, drive strategic transformation, and build high-performing, engaged teams. Linda is passionate about empowering leaders to break through barriers, embrace bold decisions, and create lasting impact. She earned her MD from Temple University, is a certified physician executive, a professional certified coach, and a certified career coach. So she really knows what she's talking about. Good to have you on the show, Linda.
Oh, it's great to be here. And this is like one of my favorite topics. So what a
Yes.
great day this is going to
Yes.
be.
Good, good. I'm so excited to dig into this. So let's just start with the definition. Some people might not even know what sponsorship is or might confuse it with other terms. So how do you define sponsorship?
Yeah. So let me just start too. For whoever is listening, I hope by the end of it, you walk away with a pearl of action because there is something here for every one of us, no matter where you are in your career, whether
Yes.
you're at the beginning, whether you're in a more senior position. So listen up.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people might even think, oh, this is only for like when you're at the executive level, but that's not true.
Oh, no, no. In fact, let's get something right off the bat. I mean, women especially are being left behind or other marginalized groups because of the broken rung. So I know we're going to get into talking about organizations and that, but we need to be thinking about sponsorship much, much sooner in the game. And so let's talk about what sponsorship is. It
Yeah.
is when a senior person takes interest in somebody more junior. And a senior person has to be somebody that has position, they have social capital, they have, they've established themselves in that organization. And they see that person and they're willing to take a bet on that person. And, often that person is a couple rungs lower in the organization, but they see that potential. They see what that person is going to bring, maybe to themselves, or at least the organization, or a vision of where they want that organization to go. So, an important thing is as you talk about millennials or our generational differences, let's be honest, we have different skill sets depending where we're at. So, embrace that. You're going to bring something to a more senior leader that they're looking for, and they're going to see that in you, and they're going to advocate for you. And they have that ability to do that because they are in a place of security. And they have that, and they're looking at you. They're not doing this because they're being altruistic. So let's get that clear up front. They're seeing you as aligned with them and aligned with where the organization. So there's this like-mindedness. And they're going to have your back, and we're going to keep coming back to that. And so they're really good at disrupting the biases in the organization or the biases that, might be had. But it's their power and their political capital that they have to invest in you but we're going to talk about it. They're going to push you to take risks, and they're going to expect a lot from you.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm going to pull out a few things that you mentioned here that distinguish it from mentorship, right? So, mentors might have your back. Mentors might care about your future and your success in an organization, right? Um, will they be willing to take a bet? Maybe, maybe not. Usually, it's a mentor who also likes to be a sponsor and takes on the sponsorship hat that places that bet on you and invests in you. So that is a key differentiator, the investment in you. That it is not just altruistic. I love that you sort of name that. That is another important one that I'd love to get back to. And that they will use their political and social capital. They're risking their power and privilege within the organization because they think it's worth it. And it's a kind of mutually beneficial thing. You don't always see that in a mentor unless the mentor is also serving as a sponsor, whether they say it or not.
Correct, correct. And you can have that overlap that somebody can be a mentor sponsor, but I like to think of it more as mentor and sponsor share some common skills. So they both, provide advice, they both give guidance, they, both will give you feedback, and they both might make introductions, but a sponsor will take that introduction level to a whole nother level. But the difference with what a mentor gives you is more just knowledge. They
Mhm.
share, like, oh, here's how I did it. Here's what you might want to consider. So they help us learn and they deepen our knowledge and they might say, go off and learn and look at this. But that's kind of where it ends, that sharing of experience and knowledge versus a sponsor is saying, I see you, I see what skills and talents you have. I'm going to put you in positions and places that are going to develop you and advance you. And when they're putting you in those positions, you're bringing value to the organization or that.
And let's talk about why. You mentioned it's not just altruistic. They're not doing it out of charity, which thankfully nobody wants to be a charity case, right? So,
Mhm.
but why? Why would they risk their political capital, their social capital? Why would they, recommend you? Like, what's in it for them?
Well, because they are leaders. They're leaders in that organization or however you are connected. You have some common connection there. And they want to see that like cause that you share or that, what you're working on be advanced. But they see you have that ability to take that to the next level, or you're going to be following on. Any senior leader knows they're not going to be there forever. So they want to develop that, who's going to follow. And they invest in the people that they, you know, share same, they see that potential. I don't want to say that they share the same exact goals because that gets into, oh, well, then I got to look and be exactly like the sponsor. No, a good sponsor values diversity. And they're like, I see that person for talents and other views and perspectives that I might not have, but they're bringing a new critical skill set a lot of times too to the table.
Yeah. And I'm going to share a story. I'd love to hear your stories around sponsorship, whether like you were a sponsor or have been sponsored and that sort of journey, but I'll share mine first. Um, and it was pretty powerful and exactly like how you're saying about, um, mutually beneficial. When I was early on in my second career as a clinical psychologist, I was honestly like really burned from a previous position that I had in a different field, different organization, and really felt like forget it. You know what? In my next, job, it's going to be a job. It's not going to be a career. I'm not putting my all in it. I'm just putting my all in other things, et cetera, et cetera. And the highest level leader in this organization started recognizing things that I was doing that were above and beyond my job. because obviously I can't help myself and I need to fix things anyway, even though I told myself it was going to be just a job. I still had to like, improve the systems, improve the relationships, improve, operating, workflow and stuff like that. And so he noticed that. And he also noticed how I was interacting and getting people working together, which was a real challenge at that time. And he said he just invited me to work with him on various projects and various ways to improve the organization. And as I was doing that, lo and behold, what was unfolding in front of me was a career that I was not expecting nor planning, right? But he saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, but that would actually like bring out my very best, that would help me lean into my sort of strengths and the things that excite me about work.
Mm-hmm.
And that also addressed his needs that he couldn't fulfill himself. And that was a beautiful marriage, because what happened, towards the end is like an amazing skyrocketed leadership career on my end. We grew the organization massively, grew the sort of visibility and recognition and branding of the organization. And, at the end of it, as I left to move on to other things, I said, I just so appreciate that you mentored me and you poured into me and like saw things, and like it was all about like what he gave to me, right? And then he said, Mira, don't you understand? I got just as much out of this as you did. And
Yeah.
it was like the first time I had realized that. I had not known that. But that was kind of like an amazing realization. And that also sort of inspired me to be able to not just mentor, but also sponsor when the chance came. So I'm curious about your own stories of this.
So, it's interesting, the story that I really was going to share too, because I have several, but when I really understood sponsorship, my story is kind of similar too. It kind of happened to me, and I didn't fully at first realize it. So here I was at a really pivotal point in my Air Force career. I just made colonel, and I was thrown into this big assignment. I was made a chief medical officer, and trust me, I was just wanted to go hide and kind of stay on the low radar. But no, I got up there, and then I started having opportunities. And I was like, wow, I met this general who was second in command for the Air Force Medical Service. And we just kept connecting, and he kept opening these doors through these projects. And then I came up, and he then helped me to see I wanted to be a commander then. And I didn't make command the first time because the Air Force that year changed the system. And we were at this big meeting, and he came over to me. He said, don't worry, I have a plan for you. I want you to meet this other general, and you're going to go work for him next year, and you're going to be then a hospital commander or a CEO. And I was like, well, this is a step back, this assignment, but I had to trust him. So that's an important thing, trust. Went off, did that assignment with this other general. In that year, did a couple amazing things, project for that general and for this sponsoring general. And it just opened new doors. And that general that he put me under to work for, and I did get the CEO assignment. But then that general too, when the one retired, who became our Surgeon General, the next one became Surgeon General. Fast forward, my career ended with an amazing opportunity leading the Air Force into their high reliability program. That's how I ended. And, so that cycle of sponsorship continued because of that introductions. Would I have ever mapped out? I gave it on a very high level there. No way. Would I have ever thought I would have come into contact with these gentlemen? No, but it just changed my whole career. And I know we're going on break, but there's so much more I'd love to pull through in those stories.
Yeah, I definitely want to pull that. And you're right, we are reaching an ad break. So you're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Bronco, and our guest today, Dr. Linda Lawrence. We air on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you are online right now and watching us, you can drop us a note and we will respond. And otherwise, we'll be right back in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Linda Lawrence, who I just found out was also a colonel in the military. She doesn't even include that in her bio. I was admonishing her in the background, like, how did we not know this? How can I not, have shared that with the world among all of the other impressive things that you've done, Linda? Well, tell me more about your story. It sounds like we just touched the surface. I'd love to hear more about the impact of sponsorship in your own experiences and kind of what threads you pull.
Yeah, I think one of the key threads is that it opened doors that I would not have opened for myself. I went into that assignment, first of all, not believing in myself. Thankfully, the people I was put under did believe in me. Unbeknownst, this general believed in me because he signed off on that assignment. But, I had opportunities, and it was that trust that was placed in me to do that. And there was like another opportunity that I had. I was serving on a board when I went into this chief medical officer role at that time. And I was on the national board for the American College of Emergency Physicians as an active duty member. And I thought I'll never be, able to be a senior officer on the board. But this general saw the value in that for the Air Force. And he said, sure, let's find a way to make this happen. And he told the head lawyer of the Air Force, find a way to make this happen. And he told the hospital CEO I work for, find a way to support her and make this happen. I've been the only active duty person I know to, be the president of a major medical professional society while on active duty. That's the kind of, now that was like something personal to me that I thought I could never do. That's what a sponsor can do for you. They can even take sometimes your personal desires. But it wasn't just like, he was like, oh, that's something you want to do? No, he saw what value that brought to the Air Force.
Yeah.
So there was something in it for him. So that's what I'm trying to say. It is a bi-directional relationship. I mentioned that, it opened doors, helped me to see my leadership as a leadership potential. I said, oh yeah, I would like to be a hospital commander or CEO, and, didn't get it. And when he told me, well, all right, we haven't, the system changed, didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. We wanted you to be one this year, but you're going to have to wait 2 years now. but go work for this other general. And I'm like, well, this is a step back. And ironically, it was actually the job I was hoping to just slip into and coast, my time in. But I'm like, okay. But, you go down there. And so now I got to meet this other general, work for this other general. And the things that we were able to do together, the opportunities that unfolded there. And that's the kind of stuff that you begin to realize you can do with sponsorship. Um, I was also the emergency medicine consultant for the Air Force Surgeon General at the time. So, um, you know, other leaders shut down the proposal to optimize and re-engineer the emergency departments across the Air Force. Well, the general I was working for said, hey, I know your sponsor is coming to town. We're going to have you go over and pitch it while he's visiting the people that are shutting this down. And lo and behold, walked out of there, project approved. That's
Nice.
the kind of things, because he could see the vision. Now I, had to learn too how to, have the skills to be aligned with the right people, to promote things in the right way, the politics of things. But that's what they can do. And I think, um, we need to develop those skills of believing in ourselves and then having people that can help us to just shine, to
Yeah.
take what potential we have. And and it's just amazing. Once that door gets open, it just kept multiplying. I
Yeah.
just
So, I think that one of the things that, as we're talking, I'm thinking about is first of all, these are doors that are not visible necessarily,
Mhm.
opportunities that are not visible to most people. So it takes somebody who has been in certain sections of the organization and understands it well enough to connect the dots between the available opportunities, the vision, and the people who could get them there. And this is part of the tricky part of sponsorship is that sponsor has to have access to two things. One is knowledge of kind of the vision and opportunities available, and two is knowledge of who has the skills to walk into those doors and to be sponsored, right? And I'm wondering from your perspective around sponsorship, that piece, like there are challenges to getting connected to a sponsor. Those challenges are harder for women and marginalized people. And so even, being visible to a sponsor who could then connect that person to that opportunity is challenging. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so yeah, let's get into how do you find sponsors. I think, well, first of all, you have to be making yourself visible, and there's some definite gender differences. You know, let's be honest, women, first of all, tend to hold themselves back. We tend to be more comfortable in the mentoring relationship because, oh, I just want to learn. I don't want to be challenged. There's a key aspect of it about putting yourself out there, about networking or connecting, about being visible, about making the time for those other things. Now, flip side is in some organizations, those opportunities aren't always available equally to all people. But, you maybe need to just put yourself in there. I call it, I golfed for my country. As I became a senior leader, I did golf, but I wasn't the world's best golfer. But I was like, hey, they do this a lot up at the high level. I'm going to have to start being part of the golfing events, because you just need to be in some of the places sometimes. But let's go back to it. Like, I think first and foremost, we need to be open as women to stretch assignments. We need to be open to being challenged. And you need to have trust. I got pushed. I got pushed into things I necessarily didn't want to sign up for, but I trusted my sponsor. So there's a lot of trust there. And then you got to perform. So you have to believe in yourself and your own skills. And ways you get connected is, I think a lot of this is we need allies and we need organizations that create allyship. And that gets back to what I said at the beginning. Everybody that's listening is going to have a role here. So whether you can be an ally, whether you can be a sponsor, whether you're somebody looking for a sponsor, allyship is so important. So to even just to begin to kind of create that level playing field early on for people to get recognized equally. And this is where we have problems in organizations and where we begin right away with the broken rung. I don't know, I haven't read your book, but, I imagine you probably get into it. The broken rung, the first place women get left behind is that, 187 to women to every 100 men get promoted in the initial entry level management positions. And it just kind of, we start to get left behind, and it's even worse for people of color or other marginalized communities. And then if you're not there and nobody's advocating for you in places where you're not represented, that's what a sponsor does. But an ally can do that as well. Then what happens? You get left further behind. So this is where even just some basic things like opening those paths to allyship.
Yeah, I really
Okay.
like that you mentioned, the allyship because, I talk a lot about which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Women aren't born with low self-confidence. They're not born with imposter syndrome. They're not born with a lack of ambition. In fact, one of the most recent McKinsey reports makes it very clear that women just, have just as much ambition, if not more, and Black women have even more ambition, towards leadership roles. So then what happens, right? We receive a lot of messages and a lot of bad treatment when we put ourselves out there, when we try to become more visible, when we try to take up space. We get like the proverbial, slap in the hand, know your place, step back, that kind of thing. And so we then learn to make ourselves smaller, to fit in, to make other people comfortable, to not take up space, to not become visible, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, that does hurt us. And purposefully, that's the point of sexism and structures like that. It causes us to hold ourselves back because we've taken in the message from the system. And unlearning that is really critical, right? To say, yes, I'm being held back and that's not fair. And what am I going to do about it? But also, allies help a lot because they help undo the damage. They're there to say, no, you got this. No, I believe in you. Let me help, step in when somebody treats you badly in a meeting. Let me speak up, when I'm concerned that somebody's speaking badly behind your back or whatever. Mm-hmm. All of that helps disrupt and undo the damage that's being done along the way, which makes a big difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is one of the key things. And I think, still women don't get the due credit for the work that they do on projects. That's where an ally can go, oh no, that was Mira's work. Mira led this project, or that was her idea. Those subtle things that allies can do to help women to get recognized, that's what helps you. It's not like you go and sign up for a sponsor. There aren't sponsor programs per se that, directed. This is a cultural thing where you have to break out the bias that is in organizations and make it part of everyone's responsibility. But I believe it really does start up at the top with leadership and the culture that is created in that organization.
Yeah. So we're reaching an ad break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the culture. Let's talk a little bit about access, and also helping people learn how they can lean into becoming a sponsor or seeking a sponsor or those kinds of things. Like, how do you do, what's the workplace politics part of this? How do you do that? So we'll be right
That's
back
great.
in just a moment. And I'm looking forward to it.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Branco, and our guest today, Dr. Linda Lawrence, who's talking today with us about sponsorship. So, Linda, let's get into the nitty-gritty about the politics behind how someone becomes a sponsor and also how someone seeks out a sponsor. How does all of that work?
All right. Well, I think what's really incumbent upon leaders and organizations is to make this a priority. And, if you are a senior leader and you're in a senior position, I'd ask you, is this a priority of yours? Even if it's not your organizational priority. Can you say you are actively sponsoring somebody? How much time do you commit to this? And you're saying, well, I don't know who to sponsor. All right, I'm going to challenge you with, what project do you need done? What big goal is not getting done the way you want it? Or if you're the leader of that organization, how many people do you know 2 or 3 rungs down in your organization? If you're a leader and you can't answer that question, I'd question your soft skills of leadership. Because a good leader really wants to know the high performers down in the organization. You want to be finding those people. So what kind of conversations are you having that you don't know where your high potentials are? And so that's what leaders need to be doing. I know when I was a senior leader, I knew who my high potentials were. I knew the people that needed to get on projects, or I knew the people, like I shared, I was in the military. So, when I was the hospital CEO, I knew who I was offering up to go over to on the wing side for a high profile project, or when we had, a dignitary visit, or the generals coming through, who was I going to stage, who was I going to let brief, who was I going to showcase, because who did I want to tell the story? And I didn't tell the story. When we had VIPs come, I didn't tell the story. I let my people tell the story. I even had it so scripted down when they walked through the hospital, who was opening the door to the next hallway we would go, that would get to meet that general officer, what airman, and get us, say something. that made an impression on that person, but it might have opened the door for them to begin to get noticed. Do you think of things like that? Do you know your people? Um, so, I'll just give one simple way that I used to do it is the power of shout outs, of starting, meetings with shout outs, one-on-one meetings, but team meeting. And that became a whole culture in the organization. So quickly it could filter up. How do you know the people that are 2, 3, 4 levels down? Um, that's, one way of getting to know it, but make sure that you're just not listening to only your inner circle around you and that you're looking for those people.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I am also thinking about um, if not everybody's doing it, is if it's not part of the culture, right? You can have what can happen over time is differences in who gets noticed depending on what department you're in. Because if this leader in this department isn't doing sponsorship very well, but this one is doing sponsorship fantastically well, then all their people are getting promoted, and all these people over here in this department are not getting promoted. And then all these people feel like the red-headed stepchildren, right? Not being overlooked, not being, put up for opportunities. And then it feels like a fairness issue, like a, disparities issue. And it's mainly because one knows how to sponsor their people and one doesn't.
Yep. But then that comes back to the senior most leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They
like
value that in the organization.
That's right. Senior most leader is like, why are you always talking about your people and you're not?
Yeah.
Well, right.
Oh,
why am I always hearing about those people and not those people? Right.
But I didn't really call out my leaders I found out that my leaders that weren't doing it didn't know how to do it. So I invested in them to do it.
That's another level of mentorship and sponsorship, is teaching them how to do it. Right. Well, yeah.
It was a skill that I felt was very important. That, they had to, because you're right. You brought up a really good point. Otherwise, the leader right beneath me that did it really well, I could have taken the easy button and go, I'll just keep taking his people because he gives me great people, and I won't look over here at the 5 other direct reports I have beneath me. And they're,
Yeah. It also comes down to like, kind of tunnel vision, narrow-mindedness about your impact, right? Or open-mindedness, broad thinking, abundant thinking, right? The leader who sponsors people recognizes that you can have both, and they can look good with their talent and showing off their talent, and their talent could also benefit. The person who is fully aware but hiding their people because they want their people for themselves, and they want the credit for themselves, and they want the notoriety or the recognition for themselves, it actually, those departments don't reach a higher level of success. I mean, for a short while maybe, but everybody burns out and leaves, and that looks bad, right?
Yeah. Well, so in the military, one of the things, you needed to have an exec officer when you were like, at my level, at the role of a hospital commander or CEO, but you didn't have one that was authorized to you on the books that came, out of hide, so to speak. And I said, every one of my direct reports underneath me, every subordinate commander had to offer up someone. And typically, no one ever took it from the clinical realm. Because they're like, well, you can't take a clinician. How could you take a clinician? We don't have enough of them out here, and that'll hurt, our access. I'm like, oh, I'm a physician. I'm tired of seeing us say we can't provide opportunities equally. I had a physician assistant as one of my last exec officers there, and we found a way to do it. And it was just like, getting some people that had the talent, But we're in these, well, we just can't create the opportunity for them. They're too, too scarce or too important. No, if they are going to be leaders in this bigger, broader organization of the Air Force, and they have the greatest potential, it's my job to find a way for us to still get the mission done and let them have this opportunity if they are the right person and earned it.
Yeah, I love that, and I mean, you're making an extremely strong case why each individual leader at other levels can be a sponsor, but it's really important for the topmost leader, the CEO, the exec, to own that sponsorship is part of the culture in order to really support everyone to be able to do it well, and for that to be a trickle down effect. I'm wondering now, the flip, if I'm an individual contributor within an organization, I would love to become visible. I want to have opportunities. I want to be challenged. I don't know how this whole access to sponsorship stuff works. What would I do?
Find something you're passionate about, something you see that needs to be fixed, and go after it. And jump in and offer to help, but not in a way of complaining and saying, this is broken, this is wrong. Be the solution.
Yeah.
If you are the solution person, and I really think that's why I was recognized by the
Same here.
sponsor that I talked to about, he loved my out of the box. I mean, the joke was I was sometimes so far out of the box, I didn't know where the box was, but so was this general officer. So I think we shared that kinship of thinking outside the box, but in a way to get the mission done. We had creative thinking, but we were people that were both aligned to, like, I can do it. And when you get told, well, you can't do it that way by somebody more senior, don't give up. Just be part of the solution. But try to raise your hand for things that you are passionate about. Don't just take on a task because somebody needs somebody to go set up this social event and you're not like a social event person. Find something you're passionate about because you won't mind putting in that extra effort. Or find a problem that somebody isn't recognized that needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
be part of the solution.
Totally. The things that I got involved with without any expectation were things just bothered me that I wanted to improve, right? And I was like, did anybody mind if I just fix this thing? I
Yep.
just offered my time, right? So I would say yes, and share what you're doing. Don't just assume that if you like go in and you solve things, it will be visible. This comes into like what you were saying about like self-promotion is not a dirty word. It's just communicating what you just did. All you're doing is sharing like, hey, I'm so excited. I just did this thing and I feel really much better about how we're running things. I just wanted to share, that kind of thing helps your work become visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And know what the organization's problems are. Because remember,
Yes.
you're trying to help the senior leaders solve problems.
Absolutely. Always connected to like, am I helping the organization move forward while I'm also doing things that like drive me and, energize me. So we are reaching another ad break, Linda. So when we come back, I have one more meaty question for you. And then I definitely want to open it up to anything else that we missed that you want to make sure our audience knows about. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mara Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Linda Lawrence, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Linda Lawrence, who's talking with us about sponsorship today. So we've talked about, the definition of of sponsorship, how it's different from mentorship, like the strength of it, how you really go about creating a successful sponsorship program. Like, where do you start? I was at this meeting where I was consulting to a large global group about a training program, and it was focused on one of their sort of marginalized populations that they were supporting. And they said, please don't recommend a sponsorship program. And they put their head in their hands. And I'm like, what? I thought, I wonder what the story is behind this. Like, they must have had some awful nightmare experience putting it into play. And I was so curious. I didn't ask, so I never found out. But a few things come to mind that could have happened. One, I thought, well, maybe there was performative sponsorship, people who said that they would do it, but didn't actually do it, or whatever, fell off. Could be dirty politics related to sponsorship, people using other people to, as a means to an end, but not an actual opportunity. And I'm just wondering, have you seen failures of sponsorship? What are the problematic ways or the pitfalls of engaging in sponsorship that we should look out for? And you're on mute.
Sorry. When you tell that story, I have to wonder if it's not the ultimate lesson I learned near the end of my career when I was leading the Air Force to transform to high reliability organization. And my aha moment was, we do a lot of training, but we don't sustain the training. And a major reason is we bring in these programs, and whatever it's about, in this case, a sponsorship program, and we put it down in the organization and we tell people to do something, but the leaders don't change and we don't drive behavior. So we were just talking the last segment about how important it is about leaders and culture. So if you want to do something in an organization, I think you need to find out, first of all, what is going on in the organization and where is your opportunity there, and how is everybody going to be part of it? So where is your misbalance? And usually it's marginalized communities that are being left behind. So typically, how do we get more white males to be allies? How do we make all leaders have action? And how does it get driven from the top? And changing culture is about behaviors, both what we accept and what we turn around and turn a blind eye to too,
Beautifully
so
said. Yeah.
So if you want to do that, that's where you need to be focused. So that's not, I think if you really want to do something, that really requires kind of taking an organizational look, maybe bringing in the right consultant to help you with that, or, just having the right leadership. I am going to give one resource. It is I think, one of the best books out there for everybody to read. It's called Good Guys, How Men Can Be Better Allies for Women in the Workplace. It's written by David Smith and Brad Johnson. I had the opportunity of meeting and speaking with Brad Johnson a few times on panels together in the military. And they talk about this, and they talk at the end of the book about just some different things that you can do in your organization. So if you're just looking for a resource, check their website out. But I think that's the place to start. There's not a one size fits all for an organization to do, because where is your organization coming up short? How bad are your politics in the organization? But this is where we went wrong with mentorship, and we still do it. We create all these mentor programs, and they're thrown down. And this is often a lot of women, it's those that need, quote, are being left behind, do the mentoring, get no credit for it. And it doesn't budge the needle. Women are over mentored, under sponsored. Harvard Business Review had an article in 2010, 2025, McKinsey report leaning, still saying the same thing. We got to move the needle by action. And I really think it's by changing the culture in the workplace. And it has to kind of start from the top up. But
yeah. Excellent. So Linda, is there anything that we haven't touched on, something that you want to leave the audience with that's really important?
Well, I think, we have talked a lot about the role of leaders. I just want, if you are, somebody young just starting out your career, it's incumbent upon you too to go out there and don't be shy, go have coffee, go ahead and ask for coffee with somebody more senior. Here's a great intro way to do it too. Just say, I'd love to learn more about why you went into what you're doing. Who doesn't love to talk about their role or their, career? Never turn down an opportunity that you might have to meet with somebody 2 or 3 rungs up, and just be authentic about yourself. Yeah. Be who you are, because that's what they're looking for. And believe in yourself, and believe in what you have to contribute. If you are a leader in an organization, do a gut check. What are you doing to find how to bring other people up more equitably? What are you doing to find new talent in the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're introverted or shy, like I used to be, and many people are one way or another, feeling nervous about approaching people that you really admire, you could also see if they know some people that and see if you could have like a warm introduction with an intermediary. Like, can we all meet together? We have shared interests, or so-and-so, can you help me do a warm intro to me so that it's easier for me to set up that meeting or something like that? It makes it much, much easier, right? Right. Where can people go to find more about you and your work if they want to work with you?
I would love to speak with anybody. Please check out my website, www.peoplealwayshcc.com. I have a button on there where you can just schedule a time to talk. Under Revitalized Women Physician Circles, where you can find a little bit more on organizations, where I talk about working with organizations up at the top. On the button organizations, on working on what we were talking about. And whereas it talks about, promoting women physicians, I do work more broadly with just healthcare organizations, or any organization for that matter I can work with after my immense experience with working within the Air Force. I just love this whole concept. I have to say, I think it is the game changer for fruitful careers. And it's something that I have enjoyed most, is getting to be a sponsor. I wish I had understood it earlier in my career. It was about halfway through my career before I made that click over from mentoring to sponsoring.
Yeah.
And I hope, the young ones don't wait as long as I did. Those that are a little more senior in your career, be looking for that sponsorship if you're not up at the top, but also you're probably somewhere in there where you could be sponsoring somebody too. You don't have to be all the way at the top to be the sponsor either.
That's absolutely true. I mean, the moment that I realized that people came to me for mentorship and understanding how to navigate complex systems, I realized I also had a certain level of power and privilege that I can offer to them. And when I could, I did. And it's delightful. What can I say? Like it's just very rewarding to feel like you could be that person that can connect a really talented person to an opportunity. You still get credit for that. And you don't have to do the work either. Like somebody else is excited for it. You don't have to hoard all of the work. Right. So anyway, audience, what did you take away? And more importantly, what is one small change? She wanted you to take away one thing that you were going to do, right? What is one small change you can implement this week based on what you learned from Linda? Share it with us on LinkedIn at Linda Lawrence or at Mira Brancu or at talkradio.nyc so we could cheer you on. We are also on all the other social media platforms and the podcast platforms. So help us increase our visibility and reach and impact by leaving a review on some of those platforms. The stuff we talk about on the show is also part of my research-based strategic leadership pathway roadmap that I use to help organizations and leaders. And you can check us out at gotowerscope.com. And thank you to talkradio.nyc for hosting. Thank you for joining us today with our guest, Dr. Linda Lawrence, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are tuning in from. Take care. Bye, everybody.